Yeah, right. Okay, cool. Session 2.
Session 2. Thank you, Thomas. I appreciate it. Just been in travel. A lot of stuff to organize. Thank you.
Yeah, just to recap, this is the second of 2 recordings. And again, these are unofficial comments by Phil, Bart, and Thomas Cox. And we are not official spokespeople on this call, and nothing we say is a commitment to actually do anything. This is just our personal best understanding of this moving target that is the code.
Cool. So I guess, like, besides the wallet, is Bart on the call? Has Bart rejoined you?
Yeah, he's here.
I'm here.
Hey, okay. Bart, quick question. So mobile applications, mobile wallets that you guys are working on, is it Android-based or iPhone-based?
Right now, the only one that I know that we have started work on is the iPhone-based one. Actually, technically, the work that we have done is iOS-based. So any iOS product that has the secure enclave on it, so that's certain iPhones past whatever version it is, but also MacBook Pros that have the touch bar and things like that. Those all have the secure enclave that we are starting to support. So,
is it a public project in GitHub?
We do have a very basic proof of concept that's in GitHub underneath our, I believe it's the programs directory. It's labeled Apple
It's
demo.
Apple SE demo.
Yeah. I don't know if that's in a state where it's going to be convenient for people to run through the test themselves, but I'm sure we can find someone to help you struggle through it if you would really like to see it in operation yourself. And it would require you to have an iOS device to run it on, and all of your Apple developer accounts and things like that.
Okay, sounds good.
So this is just this is kind of a rumor question that has just popped up in the feed, but is it true that Brock Pierce was removed from EOS?
No, removed is the wrong word. Brock was instrumental in bringing together the folks who founded the organization in early 2017. And he's also very active in at least 3 other large crypto organizations, including the Blockchain Foundation or the Bitcoin Foundation. And he's been really not involved in our day-to-day work. He has no official title. He's not in our org chart. And he was already sort of, my take on it, again, me personally, that he didn't consult me, let's put it that way. But he's been, not part of our day-to-day. And his John Oliver skewering recently, which, by the way, Brock thought was hilarious, as did I, happened to coincide with his formalizing something that's been going on for a while, which is he's actually going to start doing other things now. Me personally, I suspect Brock wants to either be involved in some dApps or something on the chain. And the best way to do that is not to be formally part of Block One, because Block One can't run a block producer and can't produce any commercial dApps. And I know he believes in the project very, very deeply. So just that's my guess. But no, there was not some sort of, take him out back of the barn and shoot him in the head kind of a thing.
Yeah, John Oliver was pretty rough. So,
John Oliver's a comedian, and he thought the unicorn wedding was funny, and which it is. So, okay, great. And I mean, seriously, all fringe technologies are initially adopted by fringe people. Find me one that wasn't, And
the SEO industry, it was casinos and porn, and the early. So that was the early internet.
Yeah, why did VHS beat out Beta? Because Beta wouldn't work with the adult industry. Guess what? One of the major real world, you get the idea.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, even some of the early payment portals were developed by those industries. Some of the very early
people who want to do business.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway.
So the question that I had, another one G, did you have any more questions? Oh, good. Yeah. Anybody else here? Who's not? Robbie, you had some questions around block production.
If one gets voted out.
Yeah.
Is there,
Go ahead and come up here.
is there anything like a ERC20 here that when you do the airdrops, it comes to the same public address?
I didn't quite catch that. Would you speak a little slower, please?
So when you do the airdrops, does it come to the same public address? And if your tokens are, say, locked in with voting, is that still going to come to the owner?
Oh, airdrops. My understanding of how airdrops work, Bart will, or Phil will correct me, is you look at the publicly visible ledger and say, oh, here's a person with an account here, and then you toss one or more of your tokens in. And you might do it one for one by accounts, or you might do an equal number of your tokens as how many tokens they already have of the other kind, or what have you. And that's done on an EOS.io based blockchain, just a lot like it would be done on an ERC20.
So if I have
You
voted,
go look, you see who's got stuff, and you add one of your own.
so if I voted with my tokens, is my
Yeah, as long as you own the tokens, whether they're staked or not, they should still be visible as your part of your balance. In fact, you could even delegate some of your tokens to somebody else. Like if I delegated 50 EOS tokens to G, they're still mine. And so an airdrop that was one-to-one, I'd get the 50 airdrops. He wouldn't, because I own them. I just delegated them to him for his use, and I can pull them back anytime. So ownership is not changed by staking or not staking, or even by delegating.
I think the biggest concern is that hardware wallet support is still not there, and why not have something where you use your currently MyEther wallet, and if you can produce the new public key and private key, right, ledger or something like that, that would be very cool. And right now, for most of us, the issue is you have the public key that you're giving, correct, in terms of EOS registration. And the private key that we get, there's no way to check that private key will work with this public key, correct? And
That does not sound like a correct statement, but Bart can answer. How do you verify that the public key and the private key go together?
You can generate a public key from a private key. I just know because I've done it. So on a wallet, on a web wallet, if you specify, you only have to provide active and own private keys. And public key is basically, it's generate, you can get public key out of private key. That's what I have seen. I don't think it goes other way, obviously. From private key, you can go to public key.
so we could have multiple public keys with the same private key, or that's not possible?
I think it's one-to-one.
It's
I mean, you guys can follow that. That's my understanding of cryptography, right? It's always one-to-one.
Yeah, it is one-to-one. We have, because of the addition of the R1 curve, we technically have two string forms that could map to the same private key, but they also map to the same public key. When you see like a key that starts with EOS and then has a string of base 58 numbers, that's a string form of a public key. There's only one private key that corresponds to that. But technically, because we added multiple key ciphers or key suites, that's also EOS K1, and then the same string of base 58 maps to the exact same public key just because of aliasing reasons, and it's still one-to-one with the private key. So there's no, it's always one-to-one basically. They're just,
So you'll need another key pair if you want to have a second, like one for the owner and a different one for active. You'll generate two, and you'll use two.
yes.
And the rest of your question, he had a question, I think, Bart, of how do I verify to my satisfaction that the private key that I stored somewhere safe and I pull it back out again, and I go and I look up the public key I've got out there on the network. How do I verify they work together when there's no EOS chain yet to stick them in?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it depends on your level of proof that you want. You could come to our repo, download our our software right now, fire up your own private local copy of the EOS chain, use the exact same private key without leaving your system, use the exact same public key, and see that when you sign it correctly, it goes through, and when you sign it incorrectly, it will bonk. We also have several unit tests that are doing the exact same thing, so you could go in and modify those unit tests to use your public and private key pair or not your private key pair, and see that they fail accordingly and succeed accordingly.
There is an easier way to do this. There's an EOS web wallet that is published against testnet, right?
Mm-hmm.
You go on import account or create account screen. I know because I'm working on it. And you type in your private key, and it's all done on the client side. You click submit. It will generate corresponding public key.
Mm-hmm.
So you can match that, and that's very user friendly.
There's also a JavaScript library that's based on that does the same thing and is publicly available, the EOS.js library, and that's using its own crypto library. So you could see this through multiple different implementations that they're all mapping and validating correctly if you wanted to.
Yeah, and since there is one endpoint where you can submit your public key, registered public EOS public key, and you get your nickname back. So this goes into snapshot. You can actually check that you have your key in a snapshot. I've done it just recently, so I can post links.
And we had a facility like that for the first testnet, the first public testnet we released, where you could put in your existing registered public key, and we would point you towards your account, the account name that we created for you. It was like random numbers, and then you could use your private key to sign transactions on behalf of that account and see them go onto the test network. So once we get the test network up, it's possible for us to create an even more extensive system for you to test that your public-private key pair is correct.
Awesome. So, anybody have any other questions for these guys? They are very busy.
One last one quick. I saw in an interview that Bart Pierce had said something effective that once it goes live in June, sometime after, that there'd be about 1,000 apps launched on the EOS blockchain, but there was never a time specified. I didn't know if you had any clarity on that. Predictions of how many people are going to adopt short term.
I'll tell you what I learned my time at Oracle Corporation. So we would always say that certain features would be available by May, which was our end of our fiscal year, but you'd never say what year.
Fair enough.
So I'm confident there will be 1,000 apps eventually. When, I don't know.
Okay.
June 3rd? But you'll notice I didn't say what year.
Excellent. Thank you.
Hey, thank you for your time.
Hey guys, I got one quick last question. Eric from EOS Denver, McFarland. Kind of with the native migration, I'm just kind of curious what I guess probably Brock would recommend for if you haven't participated in the ICO because of where you live or what it may be, and you picked up EOS tokens on secondary exchanges, whether it's Kraken, HIT, BTC, Binance, how would you recommend getting those private keys for that native migration? What's the easiest way that you guys would recommend going that way if you don't own the private key?
If you don't own the private key, I think that would be up to the exchange who does own the private key to set the policy of how you're going to get your tokens.
I would suggest there's a whole bunch of advice that Sandwich publishes. He's based out of Hungary. He's one of our contractors, deeply knowledgeable on the subject. And because he's not a U.S. employee, he's allowed to talk about the ICO in ways I'm not.
So refer that question to, what's his name again?
He goes by Sandwich. His name is Sean Mitchell, but just look for Sandwich. He's on the Telegram channel, and he's got a host of information out there on exactly that question.
Cool. One last question about I just got asked in the group. Is the KYC subdomain that just popped up on the EOS.io domain, which was confirmed, is Block One going to enforce KYC during the switch, or be a part of that, or have any knowledge of KYC compliance on the chain?
We have not announced or committed to doing or not doing anything around KYC. And when the policy changes, we will let you know.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you guys. Seriously.
Thank you. Thank you,
Appreciate
guys.
your time.
Really appreciate it.
Take it easy, guys.